started going back and correcting the cells.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
So
Welcome
this
to our
is-
Yeah.
work meeting for January
And we'll
28th.
transfer the right, we'll make sure these.
Just by way of note, doesn't sound like we might not have Councilmember Henderson. We'll see if he pops on. So we'll jump right in. We'll do 1.1 review of this evening's agenda. Any changes, comments? That might be. Okay, see none. Any future agenda items? 1.2. Okay. 1.3, council discussion of future citizen recognition. Anything? I'm assuming nothing in. Okay, we'll jump into everybody's favorite presentation. Open and Public Meetings Training Act. Oh, Todd. Is it gonna be fun this year?
Yes,
Nice.
Is it gonna be uncomfortable?
these are pictures. Yes.
Stay tuned.
All right. Thank you for allowing me to present, although it is a requirement from the state. So I want to go over a couple of basic things at the beginning. So just to set the policy behind why we have public meetings is that we exist to do business in front of the people and for the people. A public meeting by definition is a majority of the quorum that's present. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. So why do we keep training on this? If you're part of any quasi-governmental entity, you're required to have this training. Well, I just looked up the last 2 months on Google and found various headlines of people running afoul of the open meetings law across the country. So it is needed. It's to help you stay out of trouble. One of the big ones that councils often I see litigation on, I should say, is closed meeting. So I want to go over just briefly how to enter a closed meeting. Fortunately, Jackie and I have created this list. This follows in detail what the requirements are. That's why it needs to be read word for word. If you do that, you will not get in trouble. This has caused a lot of litigation not going into closed meeting correctly or talking about things in closed meeting that should not be in there. There are essentially 7 reasons to go into closed meeting. Just briefly, talking about the character and competence or professional competence or physical mental health of an individual. That one is frequently used when you're dealing with like an employment issue. It does not limit who that can be about. I've had that been raised on potential planning commissioners and maybe some issues there. And so this could really be defined pretty broadly. If you wanted to talk about Chief Carr, this is the one that you would use. We don't really do collective bargaining, but and reasonably pending eminent litigation is one we use frequently. I do want to talk about number 4 and 5. So number 4 is when you are purchasing property. Hey, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. I missed this 3 weeks ago, so.
Yeah. Yeah, this will be a little bit different than the one I gave to the planning commission. So when you purchase property, you can go to closed meeting if, very specifically, it would disclose the appraised value of the property or give you a disadvantage in your bargaining of that. The latter one is the one that we usually use because appraised value may be a problem, may not be a problem. But obviously we want to negotiate on best possible terms. Number 5 is when you're selling property. And there's some criteria on when you're selling property, such as the property or competing in the best possible terms. But you have to do it, you have to give certain notices when you do that. I often am asked, both by staff, like throughout my career, not just here in Harriman, but by staff or by council members on, I want to talk about this MDA. And my first question is it owned by the city And if it's not, then that needs to happen in an open meeting. There might be other reasons why, like if it's pending litigation where you're worried a little, about, possible adverse, issues happening after the fact, and maybe that might be a reason. Otherwise, those MDA discussions need to be held out in the public. What may happen in closed meeting is you can talk about the reason why you're in there. You will sometimes hear me say, we're straying a little off topic, we need to get back onto topic. And that's, because we cannot talk about things that are not on the reasons why we went into closed meeting. You cannot vote on anything in closed meeting. If you do vote, you have to go back into the public meeting and then make that vote. And lastly, and I think pretty importantly, if you're in a closed meeting and you're having discussions, you need to make sure that those remain within the room unless directed otherwise. For example, if we are in closed meeting to talk about buying property, then you could give direction to staff on what what that should look like. And obviously, any decision before purchasing the property needs to be made out in an open meeting. But giving direction on, we don't know what to do and we need to talk with you is one of the reasons why we go into closed meeting. Communication and emails. So, anytime there is a majority of you, and you're gonna be talking about something related to city business, it needs to be noticed as a public meeting. I always talk about this. Beware of the meetings before the meetings and the meeting after the meeting. In other words, you close. There are a majority of you present. In other words, there's a quorum. And you need to make sure that you are not talking about city policies or decisions that may come up in the future. If you're talking about someone's softball game, not a problem. But just be aware of that. Group emails, this has not been a problem, but it could easily become a problem depending on how the communication is being done. If I were to send an email to the council and I just CC the entire council and I say, agenda item number 2.1, I want to get your thoughts on this. And let's say it's an action that you will be making later that night. That could potentially be, depending on if we start getting replies from multiple members of the body, that could potentially be a meeting. You are talking about an issue that's within your purview. So just be aware of that. So you'll often see when emails come from staff to you, it's mayor and council, and you're all BCC'd. So that way, if you reply, because sometimes we do need direction, or if you want to give us some feedback, it's not responding to everyone, it's just responding back to staff. Social gatherings is not a meeting, just that there's a very clear part of the code that states that. But also be aware, I think it's important that I give you what legally is required, but also keep in mind that residents might have a different perception of what is happening. I think some residents can be very skeptical of what we are doing. And so just keep that in the back of your mind. And one way I would encourage you, if you think that might be happening, is then when you are making a decision, you can stay like how you came up with that decision, who you met with, even though some of those, like if you were to meet with another council member, that's not violating the Open and Public Meetings Act. But if you're worried that there's that issue, then you can just address it that way. I want to just briefly mention that you can use your own personal emails or phones. Be aware that they are subject to grandma. Life is much simpler that if we get a grandma request, that you can if it's an email, we can search on our own end to see what responsive records they are, or if it's a cell phone, then you can just give us a cell phone. It's so much easier. Oftentimes, I think you as the people where residents are coming to you related to issues, they might know your personal email. What I encourage you to do is if you get an email on your personal account, forward that to your Harriman account and then respond that way. And then you can delete it from your personal account and then you have that record. It's much easier to do it that way. And part of that is we have retention requirements, and we want to make sure that we're meeting those, and it's very difficult, I think, for you to know what our retention schedule is, and it's much easier if we just have that access. Okay, I want to point this out because it's not frequently cited, but this section of code 52.4.210 states that you're not prohibited from using an electronic device from communicating with other members of your body, except when the public body is not convened in a meeting. What that means is if you're in a meeting, you cannot be texting or emailing another person, another commissioner, or council member, or if you're on the planning commission, the commissioner. So, it does not state that you can't text me if you have a legal question or that sort of thing, but, I believe the reason why this is in here is because, we want to have those discussions openly in front of the public. And if you're emailing back and forth during a meeting about certain issues, then that's not happening. Okay. I've given a lot of presentations on public comment, so I'm gonna spend just a little bit of time on that. What is public comment and how does it relate? Because you hear it every single meeting.
First off, this is the United States of America. We have a First Amendment constitutional right to say what we want.
It means you have to shut up and listen to us, whether it hurts your little feelers or not.
So is that true? Does that mean that you have to listen to whatever someone has to say anytime that you're in a meeting and there's public comment required? So I want to point out the constitutional requirements is that, yes, the freedom of speech does guarantee the right to freely speak. But it is not an absolute right. And we'll go through just why that is. So the first step in the process is if you're gonna stop someone from speaking, or if you're gonna regulate speech in some way, the first step is that the court will see if that's protected speech. I'm not really gonna go into that, but that could be, there's exceptions to speech that you can, they don't have First Amendment protections. And that's gonna be your defamation, fighting words, obscenity, that sort of thing. It's a lot of speech is protected, even when you think it might not be protected. The second step is the forum that you create. So in other words, how is Harriman City Hall in council chambers, when we open it up for public public comment in the meeting, what type of forum are we creating? There are 4 forums. Traditional public forum is like you're outside on your streets or in a park. You have a definitive First Amendment right to speak there. Oftentimes in council meetings, you're going to be in a designated public forum or limited public forum. I'll talk about those briefly. A non-public forum is going to be you do not have a right to speak whenever you want to. A good example is a courtroom house. You cannot go into Chief Carr's criminal case and start blabbering off anything that you want to. You do not have a right to speak there.
That's right.
So the difference between a designated public forum and a limited public forum are a little bit nuanced. The courts have stated that it's government property that has been opened up by the public as a place for expressive activity. And the standard of review that the court looks at it is narrowly drawn to achieve a significant governmental interest. And then a limited public forum is a little bit different. It's open for groups or for certain topics. The standard of review is also different, where it's reasonable and viewpoint neutral. So think of it this way. This is the court's level of scrutiny. Rational basis is you have a lot of authority to put regulations in place. Like at the courthouse, they can dictate when things can be said, what topics they can talk about, that sort of thing. If you get a suit, and that's going to be your non-public forums. A limited public forum, you have more discretion to enact regulations. A designated public forum, you have a little bit less. And then public forum is, if you get a lawsuit and you're in the public forum space, the likelihood of you losing is pretty good. So you want to stay away from how hot that is in the courtroom. Your likelihood of success relates.
That was a toilet flushing song.
That is a long toilet. You can hear the toilet flush from my office, by the way. So, in fact, I didn't even recognize it till Chief Carr was in there. He's like, "What is that noise?"
It wasn't the toilet flushing.
It wasn't the toilet flushing. It was, yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
This is a limited public.
so we are going to do a little bit of a test. So, tell me this.
And it burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire.
Song?
Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire.
Johnny, Ring of Fire, Johnny Cash.
Man in Black.
Next one.
Is it Beyonce or Rihanna?
Okay, Girl on Fire by who?
Alicia Keys.
Alicia Keys.
Good job, Trev.
Very good.
Disco Inferno.
You got it. Disco Inferno.
The Tramps.
Come on, Trevor, you're the youngest one here. Tell me, you know it.
Am I? John's young.
Good.
Okay, Burn the House
Section
Down,
of firework music, you should know all of these.
AJR, I'm sure. What is it?
Burning for You.
Yeah,
It is,
Blue,
Blue Oyster Cult.
yep,
Yeah.
from
Sorry, Mayor, I didn't steal your
from-
fire.
okay.
Saturday Night Live is what I know.
Last one.
More cowbell.
Come on, this is at the end of one of the Hobbit movies from Lord of the Rings.
like number 2.
You lost me
It
there.
is.
You lost me there.
Fire Mountain.
I See Fire by,
Never seen
Shazam.
yep, Cousin Ed.
Shazam. Ed Sheeran sings that?
I do this exercise to remind you, stay away from strict scrutiny. Because the more, you will likely lose if you're in that strict scrutiny. And that's the big difference between a limited public forum and a designated public forum. Is that in a designated public forum, they look at it as strict scrutiny. So, how do you create one? It's very easy. We talked about this last time. A designated public forum is in general public comment section. People can talk about whatever they want to. A good example is an open mic. When I've given this presentation before, I gave it with one of the attorneys from Austin, and they have an open mic session. It's terrible. They start at noon. It can go for hours up to midnight because they have so many people that show up, and they don't have. He said theirs is not the model ordinance to use, but they also have a requirement that if there's something on the agenda, there is a right to give public comment on that agenda item. So a little bit different than here in Utah, but a limited public forum is when you restrict what can be said to things that are within your purview. So it has to be relevant to a decision that you can make. So if there's a war going on, your decision-making ability on that war is zero. So that would be something, you'll see a lot of protests when that happens. When something politically happens, you'll see protests at council meetings. And so this is an opportunity for you to restrict. I have no idea why this is relevant to the decision that I'm making as a council member. Therefore, I don't want to waste your time or my time because we're trying to run an efficient meeting. I don't want to be here till midnight.
Would there also be a difference between the open comment that we open with during our council meeting versus if we're having public comment on a specific agenda item? Is
Yeah.
that specific agenda item then, it's not strict, it's just having to do with that? And
Yes,
so
it has to be on topic.
on that topic?
Yes.
Do you interrupt the speaker, say they're talking about ICE or the protest XYZ? Do we stop them, or how's that interaction?
Yeah.
Chair?
Yeah, so the chair's job is to make sure that the public comment policy is being followed. And we do have it in our policy, that it needs to be germane to the business of the city. So if they're starting to talk about something that you have no jurisdiction over, you know, it's not within your purview, then you say, pause them. Please explain to me how this is relevant to our council and our decision-making ability. And they might try to finagle a way around it. And it sometimes can be difficult because they might be getting to a point of why it's relevant. Maybe they want you to issue a proclamation, which that wouldn't do anything either, but that sort of thing. So with public comment, there are certain things that we compel people to say, which is in red, and certain things that we restrict them from doing or in somehow, which is in green. I'm only gonna go over a couple of them, the disrespectful and attacking comments and profanity, vulgarity, and obscenity, because I think those are the two that come up the most. Here's an example. You might need to turn up the video.
Most of you were just merely volunteers, and I appreciate that. But you've still broken the law with open meeting law, and that is not the best you can do. And when you say that, this is the best we can do, I know, it's not easy to be volunteers in town, but breaking the law is breaking the law.
So ma'am, if you want to slander town officials who are doing their very best,
I'm not slandering.
then we're gonna go ahead and stop the public comment session now.
Look, you need to stop
and go
being a
into
Hitler.
recess.
You're a Hitler.
All right, we are moving
I want.
into recess. Thank you.
So she filed suit just a couple of years ago in Massachusetts, because they felt like they were being attacked and their policy prohibited any personal attacks. That has uniformly been unconstitutional to stop someone from doing that. So courts have said this about criticizing public officials, i.e. you all. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, said Mayor Palmer. That has never been the case. Actually, courts have said that political officials need to have thicker skin. They have also said that it is asking much of city councils who have given themselves to public service to tolerate profanities and personal attacks, but that is what is required by the First Amendment. Another one is the right to criticize public officials is at the heart of the First Amendment rights, free speech. So I know it's hard being attacked, when you're up there and you want to respond. So you just have to understand that is a part of your duties is to accept that criticism. What about employees, on the other hand? It's a little bit different.
Item that I had requested to speak on earlier was during the consent agenda, item number 6, as it pertains to the contract of employment for the city attorney.
This is your warning, okay?
Warning for what?
A warning for attacking the city attorney personally.
This is all factual information.
It doesn't matter.
Edging.
Chief, could you have somebody come down here and escort Ms. Massey out of
Really,
this
is that
chamber?
necessary? Why am I being detained under what charges?
Okay.
Oh, goodness.
So, I hope if I'm being attacked, you have my back like that guy. I have a suspicion that I wouldn't though. What makes this case worse? So I edited out like what she was saying. She was kind of talking for a little bit, but she was just criticizing how much the attorney was making. That he was the 11th highest paid employee in Arizona. And this is to the city of Surprise,
We get those emails all the time. Same exactly.
So she was escorted out. What makes the fact pattern even worse is that her 11-year-old daughter was sitting in the audience and had to hear her mom screaming going out there. She was detained in the hallway. So there was a suit immediately filed after this by a First Amendment rights association. I don't know if they're a firm. They do a lot of trainings, but recently, so this was filed a year, maybe, so it happened towards the end of 2024, so this would have been filed at the end of 2024. The city tried to file a motion to dismiss recently. The judge was very critical of the city's response to this, saying that her First Amendments were violated. So I think what is good practice is the more control you have over the person that they're attacking, i.e. department heads that you guys, with your advice and consent, appoint to, then you should be able to hear those criticisms, because you might have, an outcome on that, if it comes up to that. But as far as a street worker, where you're not their supervisor, you probably don't even know who the person is. They have a chain of command, that's probably where there's a safe point. I think good practice is that you just tell them, why don't you talk to their supervisor, we'll get that information through Nathan, our HR. So I have been criticized.
And I didn't do anything.
And I will show you that you can, enjoy the criticism after the fact.
What we do breed, and we have been in the city of Harriman for 5 years now. So the dog limit is 3 dogs per household. But I don't feel like an attorney that doesn't know anything about animals should be able to make our city laws. Bitches, the uneducated person doesn't know what they're talking about. Bitches, and I have a major problem with that. Bitches. Bitches.
Speaking of vulgarity, by the way, that was the proper use of that word. So it was not vulgar. But you remember, so this is where I hear the most, where councils respond the quickest, is that, I haven't heard it here, but I've heard it in other jurisdictions, that as soon as they hear a swear word, the chair will interrupt them saying, don't use that language. But you probably remember the 1971 case, the draft case, is at the steps of the courthouse, that the Supreme Court famously stated, it is nonetheless often true that one's man vulgarity is another's lyric. Courts in the United States are split on whether or not vulgar comments are protected or unprotected speech. However, in the 10th Circuit, this is just a year and a half ago, stated the impoliteness, passion, or profanity of plaintiff's speech does not overcome his free speech interest, and the offensive, vulgar manner of plaintiff's speech does not deprive him of constitutional protections, especially in the context of petitioning the government for redress for grievances. So keep that in mind. Does that mean that you have to listen to profanities forever? No, it doesn't. And I think this is what makes it difficult, is at what point does it cross the line? How many F words do they have to say till you say that's enough? I watched and listened to the LA City Council meetings, which theirs is crazy. They have like multiple a week. But there's one guy that attends every meeting, and all he does is F this, F that, calls people just the worst names, and the council just lets it go. Interestingly enough, the LA has a restriction on saying racist comments, which I'm not condemning. I just don't know how they get around the Cohen case. But so tips, and I think Harriman does this very well. Anticipate the issues and try to think of appropriate responses. I think we are very good. We have done a lot with having community meetings, which then can inform the residents about what is actually going on versus what they're hearing might be happening. And by the time you play a telephone, they might not have correct information. How can staff help clarify this? I think this is part of that role in the community engagement, is what can we do to make it visually where they can understand. We can help out a lot in certain instances. Should we separate the issues and try to make it smaller for them to digest? Is further work needed? Do we need to have multiple meetings on this so that way, and I think we do this well with our budgeting, and I know Jared has explained in length why he's making the decision, what the process is with taxes and all that, and we really don't get much pushback, like hardly any public comment. There was a very small increase that South Jordan was doing while I was there, and it was hours worth of public comment, because I think, one, no one wants their taxes raised. But I think when they understand why they're doing it and that you've looked at all the other options, that really helps the public know that you're doing what you can. Importantly, consistent enforcement. This in case law is critical. You need to have consistent enforcement. For example, if someone starts talking about, let's say, ICE protesting in a meeting and you immediately cut it off, because it's not relevant, which you should, but then the next person comes up and starts talking about their, I don't know, their puppy business that they're, starting up and that they want people to come out and support them, that's also your zoning issues. That is not relevant to any decision that you would be making. So both of them would need to be, this is not relevant to my decision and you need to act accordingly. Okay, ethics. Like the Open and Public Meetings Act, there are a lot of articles talking about ethics that come up. So just quickly, what is a conflict of interest? Utah code states that you have to have a financial interest in the decision that's going to be made. And that you need to disclose that interest in writing and orally at the meeting. After stating your conflict of interest, interestingly enough, it is silent on what you can do afterwards. I think a knee-jerk reaction is that I stated a conflict of interest, I can't vote. That's not what Utah code says. I think, however, that is good practice. That you recuse yourself for having a conflict of interest, because I think there's a public perception that can be, you're tainting the vote pool. And on gifts, so you cannot accept, solicit, or seek a gift of substantial value or economic benefits tantamount to a gift if the thing, because it doesn't have to be money, it can be something. Let's say it's a 2025 F-150 Raptor R edition.
It's very, very specific.
Wow. Feels like there's a history here.
That would, and this is a reasonable person standard. Do you think a reasonable person would tend to improperly influence that person and depart them from faithful and impartial discharge of the person's public duties, or the thing would be a reward for a decision made, or the public officer would involve it directly affecting the donor or member. So that is the rule. What everyone remembers is that the $50 thing. You know that if it's above $50, there might be an issue. So code states that occasional gifts under $50 is not a violation of this gift section. Publicly presented awards or political campaign contributions are also do not fall within this section. I was doing a little bit of research because I've always been interested on the $50 aspect of it. And I found the original bill back in 1981 where it was $50. This is almost word for word for what we have today. I would be interested in what was going on in 1981. But in 1981, as Chief could tell you, $50 could buy you
That's true.
multiple tanks of gas,
He's right.
or 5 to 7 visits to a restaurant for 2, 10 to 20 movie tickets,
That's a good point.
and a full shopping cart for your family for the week. That seems like a far cry from the $50 we get today, which may feed your family for one day. So I just thought it was interesting, and I wanted to pass that on to you in case you wanted to bring that up in the future.
Do we petition a senator?
And that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have one question.
Yeah.
If they won't state their name and address, are they still protected? I know I was in a mosquito abatement district meeting and a man refused, he wanted to comment, but he refused to identify himself because he was a sovereign citizen. And they just let him talk anyway, but I don't know, is that up to discretion or?
It depends on how the policy is set up. sometimes, you can require someone to state their name before they give comment. That's part of, meeting minutes or recording. That's a part of, an orderly, efficient meeting. Now, if they fill out a public comment card, where they don't have to state their name for the record, then, you already have that information on that card. So maybe not if they filled out a card. Their address, I think, it's improper to ask for the address of the individual. There are there's not much case law, but there is some case law stating that, in a hotly contested zoning related issue, you giving your address to 200 angry people, that could be bad news. That could prohibit someone from wanting to give speech or prevent them from giving speech in the future, depending on what happens after the fact. So, my encouragement is you have them fill out the public comment card where it has their address so that they don't have to state it on the record. You can limit it to people that have a direct stake in the decision you're making. For example, residents probably have a direct stake in the business of whatever you're deciding. But it could also be expanded to people that maybe have property but that don't live here, people that own businesses here, maybe adjacent property owners that may live in a different municipality, that they're on the border. Those people all have a direct stake in the business, so you could limit it to those people. But we don't have any restrictions on who can give public comment that way.
Thanks.
Thanks, Todd. That video I was told not to ever share, now it's public.
Well, it's public when she made it. I just rearranged the order of things.
Oh, love it. Thank you, Todd. Good job, buddy.
I think I've been itching, I flinched. He's gonna hurt you.
Okay, 2.2, annual review of the strategic plan.
Yeah, there's a quick one, but mine is far shorter than Todd's.
Oh, no, it couldn't be.
Cause it's only 3 slides. And we can skip this one, this one? So 2 left. So 2 left.
Did I turn it off? I might have turned it off.
Oh, you turned it off. There we go. There we go. So vision statement. So we've had a plan. It was adopted originally in October of 23. We looked at it last in beginning of 25. Really didn't make any changes. So I'm proposing some changes. One being I added a vision statement. In your packet, you have the new plan, the proposed changes in the existing. We could spend hours and hours working on a vision statement. I just put something in there that I thought worked. I'm open to any feedback if you want to change it, but I've done retreats and spent 20 plus hours with councils trying to come to a perfect vision statement. At the end of the day, it just fills in a box in there because it really isn't it's maybe our vision, but it's not as important as some of the other things.
I liked it.
So on top, you have what we have today is existing. It's very basic. One of the premises that we're gonna provide essential services, which was here. But later we defined essential services, all these different things we do, which were all these things. And one of the challenges we had is everybody wanted to be here, nobody wanted to be here, even though we said they were all the same. So I propose, working with all the staff, to reword them and would change from essential services and quality of life and engage to livability. How do we improve that focus? Economic vitality and community engagement. So those are the proposed. It's still very much the same, similar plan style. And understand, this is really internally focused on the organization. How do we as an organization take the things you want to do and move forward? And I've also included, I didn't stick it on here. We have those questions. It should be an attachment in your staff report that we talked about a while back of how do we analyze new programs. But ultimately, I think what we're trying to do is, are we doing things as a community that help our residents and make it better? Understanding you have to weigh it, not, I've never seen a decision made that every single person loved. Somebody's gonna be on the other side. And so, just trying to balance that. So, I had talked to Councilor Anderson, I think right now the plan says every other year. The intent is to do it every year. So I would reword that before it comes back to you, just annually. When we originally had written it, we were gonna talk about it in January and formally adopt it in February, which gave you some time if you wanted to make changes. So that's probably how it will still be worded. But ultimately, it's the organization's plan, but you guide it, cause it's this high level, so I'm gonna open it up to you if you have comments, questions, suggestions, things you want us to change, omit, scrap.
I'm a fan, I love it. This goes a lot further than what I originally hoped for a little bit. While still, I think meeting what, some others' thoughts were at the time, so I like it.
I think it's clear and it gives us, I wish your LV, EV and CE made a word, but can't have it all.
I guess we could work on that if you
Yeah.
want, like the feds, everything they do is an acronym.
Killed them?
No, I think, I like how it's like, maintain basic level services. How do we do that, or what's that actually doing, and it's making it livable. So I think that's a great transition there. And it gives, it's like, sometimes you're like, oh, I wanna steer the ship. This isn't steering the ship, this is that North Star you're pointed towards. And then you guys have the processes and procedures to steer the ship. So yeah, I think you're good.
And we do have the, as we said, as a staff, we try to take, under these, you saw in the plan, there's bigger goals. We try to break those up into a tactical plan that Shelley does a good job of reminding us monthly to make sure we're filling that out and moving forward. The idea is that just to help people, when you look at a big goal, sometimes it's like, it's this big goal, you don't even know where to start. It's to start breaking it up into smaller chunks, you can start moving forward. So I intend, I'll bring it back. If there aren't any changes, I'll just bring it, other than that one on the annual versus every other year. It'll be on your next agenda and on the consent, just to formally adopt it. And the plan would, again, next year, it doesn't do us any good to have a plan that you never look at. And so, we talk about it quarterly when we have our managers meetings, we talk about the tactical plan and where we're going, so we just wanna make sure we're still in line with what you want.
So it was really nice to talk to you about the strategic plan, and I am totally supportive. I really like it. One thing I'd be interested in hearing from like other council members is like, a lot of these things are directed at the staff and work that you're doing. And I would be curious to hear, like, as a council, like, are there 2 or 3 big things that we would like to make sure that we accomplish this year? And like things that we can like say at the end of the year, like, yeah, we did this, this, and this. Things that are maybe a little more under our sphere of influence instead of things that staff are primarily going to carry out. So I'd be curious about that. I know that there are communities that kind of operate in that way, and like councils say, like, what are our big rocks? So I don't know if that would be a discussion for another time, or something that somebody has would like to talk about now, or, be curious.
I told you I love it, yeah, I absolutely love it.
You think about like the athletic complex, there are other like big things that we're trying to move forward, and I don't know, sometimes it's, as a new council member, when I've been introducing myself to different people at different meetings, I always say, well, what's your advice? And a couple of them said, like, have an idea of what you want to accomplish. A lot of them said, first, just learn and listen first. But have an idea of what you want to accomplish, so that at the end of your term, you don't just look back and say, wow, I went to a lot of good meetings.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that's like interesting to think about, whether we're prepared about right now for a discussion or not. But I would like us to be able to just have some direction for ourselves as well.
I think also, like, on top of that, identify some things where, the council's attention's gonna give us, like, the most bang for our buck. Like, for me, with what we've had in our economic development and, you know, how that's building and, you know, we push the snowball off the side of the hill and the snowball's getting bigger, we're like, we need to, you know, do some things and, you know, strike while the iron's hot, so to speak. So, you know, that's just one thing that's at the forefront of my mind, as things start to come together with the athletic complex. It's going to open up some other avenues in which we're gonna, you know, wanna have some, you know, guidance to make sure that we get it right the first time and we're not, you know, struggling for, you know, a couple of years just with some, you know, ideas and understand that, try to gather the information so we can just get those things, you know, right. And kind of identify those types of things, so we can put our attention, you know, there. Not that I necessarily need to pick winners and losers, but there are some items that just come up that are going to, you know, demand our attention. And, you know, I think we need to have the bandwidth to kind of review that kind of stuff.
And I wonder if it's like to help us, I mean, sometimes we're needed as that elected official, sometimes we're better off not being in the way. But having those goals, like having staff maybe say, okay, here are 3 big things in the next 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, what that looks like. And this is where we'll need some extra pressure, extra help with those connections, relationships, having those extra meetings, whatever that may look like. Rather than us saying, oh yeah, I'm all over the athletic complex, I'm all over the arts theater, I'm all over XYZ, and we spin our wheels and staff wheels without momentum or forward movement.
Would you all like to schedule a time to have a deeper conversation? I mean, I know Wendy's scratching notes, I'm trying to.
I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
maybe an early
I think we
council
could-
meeting for
then
in a couple,
Yeah, even at
March.
5 o'clock,
yeah, 5 o'clock.
And I think we find a way to make sure it fits into this plan too. I think there's a way, you know, I look at the athletic complex and.
We did add it in the plan, it's,
Yep.
I can't remember which section I added in.
It's probably in comment and community.
And again, if it's something all 5 of us are working on and talking about with people, I think if it's, you know, these goals, then I think it really just.
It's almost like our cue cards, right? Our top 3 bullet points when we're in meetings, talking about what we want from our senators, what we want from our county, what we want, or what we need attention on.
That unified voice.
Yeah.
So we'll work on, we'll set something in, to look at the work meetings coming up, because I think next meeting we've got a bunch of presentations, so it'll probably be, end of February.
Or even
Gives you a
into
little bit more
March or
time,
something,
March,
yeah.
sometime for you to really think about and say, here's what we want to do. I would look through here, if it's not in here, that's totally fine, we can add it, we can always just re-adopt it. If it is in there and it's, we wanna change, so what I'm saying, I'll bring this back, you adopt it, if you wanna change it, it's yours, feel free, don't feel like, well, we'll have to wait until next year, it's not a big deal. I just wanna have one that we can say, yes, it was adopted if it comes up.
Absolutely.
So.
This would just be like an additional layer or something, right? I mean, everything we pick should fit into those 3 strategies.
As you go underneath, you'll see we kind of start spelling out, so we can, okay, this is something that fits in here we're trying to work on. I think everything you talked about is already in there, but if it's not, or you wanna be more specific, sometimes we might add here, we might even just put it in the tactical plan and say, okay, we've gotta go do this year. And, so we'll schedule some, probably second meeting in February.
Depending on how long that second meeting,
Yeah,
our meeting.
well, because
Although
now
today
that.
our packet was very small.
Well, we're about to be done, and this is what is also driving a lot of our work meetings. The next item there.
Yes.
Give the
Super
clicker.
excited.
Okay.
I do have the clicker, I know.
Okay, we'll go to 2.3, discuss fiscal year 2027 to 2028 budgets for Community Development and Renewal Area Administrative Services Division, Administration Department, and Legislative.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So, first, before I begin, we're gonna start with the community development and renewal area. So essentially, if I could do one or two sentences, what these areas are is these are areas that other taxing entities have elected to forego some of their property tax in order to incentivize and to have areas grow at a faster rate. It's a lot more complex than that, but that's the crux of it. I also do like to note on our renewal area, all of the taxing entities such as the school district and the county, they had to elect to participate in these. It's not like some of these newer ones that have come out or are coming out where they are forced to participate. So for example, the school district did say, yes, we will participate. You'll see they've got some strings attached as we go through some of the commitments in these areas. So the first one is the Harriman Town Center. This is actually where we're at. The red star is City Hall. This, as you know, this is also where our new Target and Trader Joe's The Commons is being developed. Apologize for this being so little, but this shows over the current budget year, so 26, and then what is being proposed for 27 and 28. The interesting things with all of these redevelopment areas is all of the agreements, for the most part, are driven off by what increment we receive, what a tax increment we receive. As you can see, for the increment side, I had projected some drops. The reason that is, I was using projections from 2 years ago for 26. That time, it was looking the target, the Commons development, which was moving a little faster, and part of it would be coming online in 26. As we all know, it'll be 27 and 28 when we first start seeing property tax from that. As I said, and then miscellaneous wise, we are, because we did enter into agreement with Elevated, who is the developer of the Commons, we are anticipating a drop in interest rates because we're not building up as much fund balance because we're paying on these incentive agreements that we'll get to. And as I mentioned, our tax increment payments are going up due to our agreement with Elevated Development. So in this RDA, we have two main agreements. So one is to HTC Communities. That is to reimburse them for infrastructure and debt service that they paid previously on our special assessment area bonds when this development was just first going. So the total amount we'll be paying is a little over $20 million. We do have 9 years anticipated left on that agreement, and we've paid about $6.6 million so far. That's as of last fiscal year, so that's not including what we're anticipating paying in 26. We have not received our tax increment yet for this tax year, so. And the next one is the new one that was just entered into last year, and this EPC Harriman LLC is also known as Elevated, which is the developer of the Commons at HTC. So as for infrastructure and site improvements, the total is almost 40 million, 36.9 million. It is important to note that is both tax increments, so property tax and sales tax. And as you can see, for property tax, there's about 11 years left in this project area. And then sales tax, because that hasn't been triggered yet, so that is their sales tax incentive. That has a 20-year max term. And so far, we've only made one payment, about $263,000. Their payments will increase as we pay off HTC Communities. Their agreement's a little interesting because there's a split between an infrastructure reimbursement and a debt service reimbursement. And part of the agreement is we're not going to start paying on the debt service portion until our bonds are paid off, because we've got two bonds, as we discussed last time, outstanding. So that's why the number's so small, but it will increase. This is a map of the Harriman Business Center. So easiest way to describe this to somebody who doesn't know, this is the Academy Village area where Real's located, the Lee Supermarket, etc. As you can see on the map. Once again, there is a slight drop in tax increment projected, and that's largely due to projections I did 2 years ago with the budget. I was expecting that large commercial apartment development to occur sooner. As you know, that's under construction and will be finishing up soon. In addition, we are seeing more cash on hand within this fund, so I'm anticipating our interest income will increase. We do have one agreement with the Sorensen Foundation, which I'll get to in a minute. And then not necessarily a last minute thing, so right now we're doing what I'm calling budget and just-in-time budgeting. So the departments haven't actually turned their budget submissions yet, and yet Trevor's working with the CIP committee working on that. I did find out today that there is a project in there that is proposing using CDA funds, but that will need to get approval from the CIP committee, and then also we need to do an internal staff review to make sure there aren't other needs within the project area that might also need these funds that are available. But I did want to highlight that, so if you see it when we discuss the CIP, you're not feel like I blindsided you
Yeah,
on
we
that.
do have a large obligation we're paying as with
Yep.
value.
And that's,
Can this move ahead of that? Or
that's my next slide.
There you go, next slide.
So in December 2024, we did rework our agreement with the Sorensen Impact and Legacy Foundations. Some of you that were on the council may remember we had a number of agreements prior to this consolidation, and none of them really referenced each other well, and there was some ambiguity on what the city was supposed to pay from what funds. Luckily, this agreement cleaned all of that up, and it also gave a clear total of what we owed, which is $32.9 million, and that is all for infrastructure that was put into the area. It is important to note that $32.9 million, it's not just this tax increment from this area, it's also impact fees that are collected in that red project area that looks like an L, so it's not the entire project area, it is the L. So anything collected in that area as we move forward, we will have to remit to the Sorensen Foundations. So with that, we have paid about $13.8 million already. There's about 16 years left with this project area. And then we don't know, the impact fees will be paid to them as they're collected, so it's unknown when that area, that L-shaped area will fully develop out. And I have not worked with Trevor yet to see what the potential amount is for that impact fee, but that's something we can work on, because Trevor's done all the work on the numbers, so he knows what we're collecting from what area.
So on that, it's a total of 33 million, but that comes from TIF and the impact fees for 16 years on the TIF, but the impact fees continue after that or until it's paid?
Until we reach that total. Overall, the CDA will, if projections work out, the CDA will have enough money to pay for it in its entirety. Of course, the developer wants to be paid back faster, which is why they've put that impact fee clause in. And it was in their other agreements, so they had impact fee agreements, so it wasn't like this was brand new. The nice thing is if we do have extra money in the CDA, and granted this is 16 years down the road, we could reimburse ourselves for those impact fees we paid if we have excess funds in the CDA as we look to close that out when the project area is done. Next one is Anthem Town Center. So this is where Winco is located. Is probably the biggest point. As you can see, it extends down near where the Automel project area is, North Harriman project area, which we'll get to in a minute. So the main thing with this fund is, as some of you might remember on the council, we did have a number of agreements with the developer, Anthem Town Center LLC. Those have all been satisfied with the exception of we do have a tax increment payment where they get a certain percentage of the tax increment generated, and that's the majority of that tax increment payment line on expenditures. This also does have affordable housing funds, and I do have a slide to just discuss affordable housing, what we have available, and what it can be used on after we discuss these project areas. But there is balance right now of our affordable housing funds, as of today is a little over 448,000. And then looking ahead, so including 26, 27, and 28, anticipated collections would be approximately 806,000. As I said, we've got another slide coming on affordable housing funds. As you can see, we do have a few agreements. So the first one's one with Anthem Center LLC. So they receive 73.33% of the funds after we deduct those mitigation payments. And how some of the newer agreements work is it used to be that school district would say, we will allow you to take 75% of the tax increment for an area. Now they're saying you can take 100%, but we want us to pay back a certain percentage. So it's getting to the same place. It's just a different way of doing it. So for example, with the county, we're receiving 100% of the increment from the area, but they have us pay back 28.75%. Same with the library. The school district receives 35% back. So overall, we're receiving 65% from the school district. But I do show it as an agreement because it is a payment we do have to make back. And then just a note on the affordable housing, it is for both areas. The Innovation District we'll talk about has affordable housing funds. It's 10% of the net funds received, so it looks at what we received and then these agreements, these mitigation payments to arrive at the amount we multiply by the 10%. So the next one, and this is not the right slide. So the Innovation District, apologize for that. That's the area with Bullfrog on 118th, and it literally is Bullfrog, and then there's a parcel behind that is included. With some of the changes that occurred, and then the annexation into South Jordan, into that area, does make some differences. So here, because we're only anticipating right now that the Bullfrog building is getting built, I know there has been talk about a possible expansion or other uses, but for my modeling purposes, I assume all that's going to be built is Bullfrog. So because of that, the increment is not going to increase that we receive, it's going to stay relatively flat, and you can see that in the taxes number. The miscellaneous is I am anticipating interest income the amount of money we earn on our funds to drop as interest rates drop. And with that, we do have a few agreements. Once again, we've got those mitigation payments for the county and the school district. We do have a agreement with Harriman Industrial Number 1, which was the developer, to reimburse them for some infrastructure. They have not requested reimbursement. Sandra, our Economic Development Coordinator, and Blake, our Community Development Director, are reaching out to them to see if they are intending on triggering that, and if not, for some reason, we would look to cancel that agreement. We could possibly use those funds for other projects in the project area, but that's why we haven't paid anything on it, because they actually do have to request reimbursement or request that agreement to start. We also do have an agreement with Jordan Basin that is active for a pipeline, but it sounds like that project will not be done with some of the changes that were made in the annexation of that area into South Jordan on the west side. But they still have an active agreement. It hasn't been canceled, so I did put it on there. And as you can see, we do have affordable housing contributions for the district. We are anticipating overall the lifespan of the project area would be about 345,000. We've collected about almost 70,000 on that.
Do we need to relook at that agreement so we can clear it?
Yes, I think if it's determined that it's not going to move forward, we do need to rescind that just to keep things clean. Next one's Harriman North CRA, so that is the Auto Mall, so that is the area north of 126 South. As you know, there's a few businesses already there, such as Garage Grill, the Toscanos going in, and the few shops that are in there right now, and then behind that is the anticipated Auto Mall. As you can see, so what this is it is not a property tax increment project area. It is strictly sales tax that's received from basically the city, and then an interlocal has been made with the CRA to basically give the money to the CRA so it can pay it out. So we have two agreements right now, so we are anticipating that one of the dealerships will get built within the next year, in 27, and then 28, it would be fully operational. So that is why the transfer and the payments increasing by 45,000. We do also have a settlement agreement with some former owners along Main Street. They are participating in sales tax collected in the area as part of an incentive, as part of a settlement with them. And as I mentioned, we have this agreement with Butterfield Commercial. We've paid about 43,000 and change. That is starting to increase a little bit because we do have those businesses. I believe it's Copperview Plaza. The name changed and I am still stuck on the old name, apparently. We do have 8 years left on that one, or 200,000 once they hit the cap. And then we do have 3 active development incentive agreements. As you can see, the amounts on there, and then those are for 15 years once triggered, and the participation on those is, as we discussed with sales tax, we receive half of the 1% collected at point of sale. We would give these entities 70% of that half. So we are still collecting a portion for us, but then the other part's going to them.
15 years once it's triggered, but the agreement between the CDA and the city is for that only for 15 years. So we have to talk about how that. I don't think that each one gets 15 years. I think once they decide to do it, that's something we have to look at the way it was drafted. And the agreement between the city and the CDA, because it references that agreement, and that agreement is for a flat 15 years.
Next, I did want to just go over housing funds and what they can be used for. So I did reference the title in Utah Code, it is 17C. One thing of note is it can be used anywhere in the city. It doesn't have to just be used in that project area. Then I list some allowable uses. This is straight out of state code. The cost of land or construction of income targeted housing, which there is a definition in state code on what that is. Rehabilitation of income targeted housing, replace housing units that are lost because of development, increase, improve, or preserve affordable housing supply. You are allowed to transfer the funds to a local housing authority or the Olene Walker Housing Loan Fund. And then you can also lend, grant, or contribute funds, as you can see, to a person, entity, etc., for affordable housing or homeless assistance. So you have seen this with a few cities that have made donations to a developer to increase housing for certain groups such as teachers, public safety, that type of thing. One thing of note is we do have to spend those funds, encumber them or allot them within 6 years. And with the Anthem area, we are hitting that 6-year mark. So at least for part of the funds, we will need to make a decision within the next year on what we plan on doing with at least that portion of the funds.
A rolling 6 years?
Yes. Yeah, it's similar to impact fees. They probably just pulled the same language from there. And as you can see at the bottom, we did kind of go briefly touch on these balances, but the Anthem Fund as of today has about 448,000. Forecasting ahead to the end of fiscal year 28, so that'd be June of 2028, be about 800,000 if my projections are reasonably accurate. And then the innovation, so that's the Bullfrog area. So right now they have about 70,000 in funds, and then that forecast is up to 111,000. So right now, we could write a check for about 518,000 and change. That's what we've collected.
If you don't use it within 6 years, do they lapse somewhere?
It does not say in code.
Okay.
It just says they have to be used in 6 years, but it does not say what the penalty is, what happens.
We probably will schedule a time, we'll chat. There's some ideas we've talked about, how to try and use them. We did try to use them with the elevator project for those affordable units there, and they just said they were, there's more strings than they wanted to deal with, so.
And have we come to 6 years on any of our past projects, or I know, is this a little bit newer provision?
This is a newer requirement, so the CDAs don't require this, but the CRAs do. It all depends on when the project areas were formed.
Okay.
So we just have these two.
I'd heard that it's hard for cities to use these, and so these pots of money are drawing more attention. And so like people are interested in them. If the cities are gonna use them, you could see other things happening. So I'd love to have a plan.
And there are some reporting requirements. I'm not super familiar. I worked at a city that used these housing funds. They were actually mentioned in a Kim C. Gardner study, but they have full-time staff in their RDA to handle it. So I didn't put it on the slide, but I mean, they're not owner's requirements, but there are reporting requirements on what those funds are being used for. That's not just straight given away. Now on to some other budgets. So the first one I did want to discuss is the legislative budget, so your budget. And just as of note, I won't do this for all of the funds, but this blue sheet, it's white with blue highlights. So this is the level of budgeting that all of the departments do. The city manager and assistant city manager did, mostly city manager, but you made some suggestions. So credit or blame, depending on how you feel. Just to give you a flavor of the level of detail we do budget into, and especially where it's your budget, I did want you to be aware of what we had put in the budget. But we aren't planning on doing this for all of the budgets, but if you ever said, I really want to know what you budgeted in this line, we can provide this, because we will have this for every department. So year in budget, the major discussion items and other big changes are, so number one is we did put in this budget to restore the federal lobbyist budget of $50,000.
That just gives you the flexibility if you want to hire more as we go through the budget, if you feel like you're not going to, I want to just put it in the proposal.
And there is no active contract for that right now. And then the next one, especially for the council members that have been here, is Riverton has requested in the past additional funding for the senior bus that they operate, where they pick up Harriman residents and take them to the center. So we did move that budget from $5,000 to $25,000. We did pay them the increased price last year. We did have some savings in other areas we could pull from on that, but we do not have a signed contract with Riverton on a set price, just as an FYI.
Is that a discussion item between us and them, or our future?
Yeah, we need to do that. It was, we chose to wait. Their staff they sent us one number, we pushed back, and they sent us a lower number, but I think we do need to get something in writing. The agreement originally just came to council. There was a request to council back in Mayor Freeman's time, said we'll do 5,000, and then it just went on. No agreement, just 5,000, and then they sent us their numbers, and so I think having something in writing would be good.
So do we need this if we're ramping up our senior activities at our center?
I think for the next few years until things really get going. There are a lot of grant funds available for senior bus transportation, but I don't think it's something we'll be doing in the next couple of years.
Okay.
Is Riverton taking care of that themselves as a city, or are they contracting it out? Okay.
Their facility is a county facility. They provide the bus that takes people to the county who's operating it.
That facility was intended to be a regional facility at that time. But I think we've just grown too quickly. Our population's grown too quickly, and they want different activities than they offer there. We have a different demographic than.
It's almost quicker to go to South Jordan than Riverton as well.
Yeah, and sometimes.
And how many of our people ride this bus?
That's the number we need to get to. That's the big talk we've got.
Not
a lot.
And for how many activities?
So we got that number from the county.
A couple years ago.
Yeah, we need to
It's
refresh
like
that.
once a week or once a month?
No, it's 5 times a week.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a few residents who ride it quite a bit.
I'd be curious compared to like putting them all on Via or something,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
I was wondering,
We'll
cost per
look at
trip.
those numbers again.
Yeah.
That
It's been a while since we looked at them.
it's fairly high cost per unique user, cause there's not a lot of unique users, there's a lot of repeat users.
And I'm almost, I'm 2,500 isn't a lot for a year's worth. This is 1 year. Right?
25,000.
25,000. Oh, I missed a zero.
2,500.
I would need that in my presentation.
I'd go down to 2,500.
I don't wanna pull services away from anyone, but I'd be curious for people to know the true cost of the service they're getting.
It's the consistency though too, and the accessibility and.
Right, for sure. There's a lot of trade-offs.
Yeah, so.
And then the final discussion item for the,
That's why I missed it.
and another thing is, there is a possibility we could request CDBG funds for it, especially where we're becoming an entitlement city. However, that's not guaranteed, so, you know, Wendy and I discussed, and we thought it'd be better just to put in the budget now until we know for sure. Cause I don't wanna say who knows what's going to happen with CDBG, but it's a very, as you know, the federal government's a very tumultuous time. I did have one last thing to discuss with this budget, so as you are aware, so your salary as it's set, does not come with any automatic, COLA increases, cost of living adjustments, any sort of adjustments. We had discussed, using a 10-year average for our COLA, so that's 3.21%. I would gauge, the council's temperature if you want to look at this. In the future, if we wanna have another work session, it would require a public hearing, to increase the wages, but, I bring it up just to make sure that the wages aren't falling behind, but at the same time, it is a sensitive topic. And we would, of course, have our HR department do, an analysis of neighboring cities, to determine if, what the salary range, what the salary range is and what the proposed range would be, so.
I don't know, that's a tough one.
Well, just a caveat, like, this is down the road. But I would like to point out, we're getting a lot of bang for our buck with the mayor right now. And, rumor has it, that might be the last term. And so, moving forward, I think there's a decision to be made as to, what we want our, the next, mayor to, not to look like, but let's just say that, we might not be as lucky. And we might have to look at, compensation for, the actual time that office demands for a growing city. So, that's down the road, but that's a discussion that, at some point in time we're gonna have.
I did like what you did last time, is do the comparisons from city to city and see where it would be. Not that we want to raise our levels that high or that quick, but I know that we wanna make sure that these seats are more for what the good of the city and not for a paycheck per se. Unless we do need a more full-time position at that level, and who knows what 4 years, 8 years, 12 years looks like, so.
And we do have another personnel discussion scheduled. It was, more of if it's a hard no, I don't want HR to go through, the surveying process. It's not too onerous, but if it's if it's not a hard no, we can at least bring back the numbers.
And it might not be, I don't know if we wanna just relook at it every year, every 2 years, I don't know what that
When did we
looks
do
like.
that one, last one?
It was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was mid-session, so it's not during election season, it's not during change in positions typically, unless you have a movement or resignment.
I think the danger is just going too far.
Yeah, right.
Like too long of a period of time. I know a few months ago, I was Googling and saw every council salaries for the Wasatch Front. I think maybe the league had put out, it was like 4 years old. So that information might be out there somewhere, maybe things have changed since then too, if there's not an updated list, but.
And our staff will go out and pull those, so we can make sure, cause they change every year.
I think AI can pull a lot of that stuff now.
And we do,
Yeah,
we do belong to a municipal salary database that all of the cities
Oh, that's,
contribute their data to, so
So it's more accurate.
it's not difficult to pull.
okay.
Moving on to administration, so there aren't a whole lot of changes being proposed, and then just on the personnel, I've neglected to mention on the legislative, so right now I do have the COLA, a small merit under 1%, and then we have no idea on insurance right now, so I did put a 10% increase in. You've probably heard me talk about the budgeting by vibes, in insurance, I have bad vibes this year, so we're starting with 10, hopefully it's not 10, but there is one major request from the administration, and it's actually that second page. So anytime there's a new request for something brand new that we haven't done before, they will fill out an expenditure increase request form. So we were a pilot program for legislative tracking software this year, as we did, so we're using it for free, which has been fantastic. We would, if this pilot is successful, we would like to look at going out for bids on this type of software. And then there's a few smaller increases. One, for example, the computer rotation, so in 28 we'll have another election, which would mean we will have new, potentially new counselors that will need laptops, so. So nothing too terribly major there. And then finance, I only have one thing, unfortunately, it is expensive. So as you know, we are implementing new financial, HR, payroll, and budget software. We go live with financials next week, and then payroll is in 2 weeks. So our yearly cost for this software, and yes, that amount is correct, the comma is not in the wrong place, it's about $140,000 a year. And just as a reminder, so this is a software as a service product, so it is being hosted by the vendor. There is limited IT intervention, thankfully, so they are handling everything. And then as Nathan and I were talking yesterday, unfortunately, these are just what these systems now cost. We were using a system that was definitely undersized for us. We should have probably switched when we were at 10,000 residents, not 62, 63. I did break out just to kind of give you a flavor of what we're actually paying for in addition to just straight financials. For example, just a budget module is almost 20,000, and that's actually cheap compared with some of the ones on the market. And in the contract, they are allowed up to a 5% increase a year, so that it has been factored into the budget. But that's the main ask from finance. It's not really an ask, because if we don't pay it, then I don't have software, and anyway.
What is our current software budget?
It is approximately 15,000 a year.
Okay.
It is hosted by us.
So there's added work in this, okay.
And we do need to keep paying that for at least 2 years because we haven't switched all of the modules out, so. You will see a request when we discuss the CIP for utility billing software. That's the other main component we need to replace before we can switch.
So once, in 2 years, once it's replaced and we have that deduction of the old software and deduction in man hours or physical manual input to the old system from the new system, right? You'll have cost savings on.
Well, right
You'll still
now,
work your-
the other system's just antiquated and too small for us, so.
But there's rework and.
Right, there are some efficiencies with the new software. To give you an example with the payroll HR, we are no longer doing paper time cards. Yes, in 2026, we were doing paper time cards for the majority of our staff. So there's that alone. IT will have savings because they aren't dealing with the hosted solution that was continually breaking down. You probably got very sick of all of my payroll emails a couple years ago when I was saying, oh, system's down, sorry, we don't have paycheck stubs, you will get paid, it will go out sometime. But there will be some cost savings. It's a little hard to quantify the number, but yes. Add efficiency. Last one, so this is recorder, customer service and court. So these are a lot of Jackie's departments. The big change with the recorder's budget is we do have an election coming up in 2028. And you probably remember the discussions we had when the county changed their pricing model. So it is a big guess on what that number is going to be. There's a lot of variables in that. One of my favorites is it also depends on what other cities are doing and what elections they are running. That factors into our cost, because if we have a lot of people running elections, that lowers our cost. But if there's a few candidates, that increases our costs. So that's also a variable we can't control and won't know until, a few months before the election. So anyway, we do see a big drop in 27 because we don't have an election of, about 112,000, but then it increases again because, we have an election, in 28. As you can see, I did put our 25 cost ended up being approximately 72,000, a little over 72,000.
Do we have our actuals for this last election?
Yeah, it is the 72.4.
72.
So it was less than we were anticipating. The downside we saw was we did not get a lot of detail from the county on how that number was arrived at. But we were just happy it was lower than what we were expecting.
Is that standard then, just a lump sum bill?
Yes, and we were lower than a lot of the Utah County cities. Jackie did get some numbers just to make sure we were kind of in the ballpark.
Do we know what the matrix that the county is using to come up with the number, even though it depends on what's going on with other municipalities? Like, is there a method to the madness?
They gave a matrix, however, we could not make heads or tails of where they came up with the formulas.
Thank you.
And even that question came up when Tara and I were running unopposed. Do we drop those two ballots to one name instead of two? But they couldn't articulate the cost savings, so it was debatable.
And the cost for us to do our own is equally insane, unless we take on all the heat that comes with it.
Because there's other county systems that it's not known if we would actually have access to. I'm not even sure if we can actually run our own election, even if we wanted to, just with some of the.
At some point, you're going to have to still contract with the county because the state legislature removed the ability for city clerks to be able to view the VISTA database for privacy reasons. So they're trying to limit the amount of people that can access it. So you'd still have to contract with the county to access voter records, to do signature verification for every ballot.
Can I ask you how much longer?
We're done.
Oh, okay.
Unless you have questions.
Right on cue. Sorry, I didn't wanna push you either.
No, it's all good.
I know there's a crowd out there.
Very exciting.
City business, it's the Chinese students doing their performance, the dragon, I've seen them walk by, it's pretty impressive.
It's so fun.
Okay, I will look for a motion to temporarily recess.
I'll make a motion to temporarily recess work meeting.
Second by Matt, all in favor?
Aye.
We'll reconvene here after.
I like the solar
You do.
It's gonna be like 22%.